Welcome to Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite.
Hey guys, Alicia here with Working Dog Radio, Torchlight K9, and Oil Capital K9 Fund. I'd like to say thank you guys for listening to us for the past 6 years. That would not be possible without you and without our sponsors. We want to say thanks to Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been a longtime partner of ours. They're friends of ours. We do equipment with them. We use their equipment every day. Ray Allen, the letter K, the number 9, on socials, Ray Allen K9. Please check them out at rayallen.com. If you guys are looking to go to a conference this year, it has to be none other than HITS K9 Conference. They're going to be in New Orleans, 2024, from August 26th to the 29th. If you guys are interested in going, and you should be, please contact Jeff Barrett at 863-529-5113 or check him out at hits, the letter K, the number 9.net. Everybody wants to feed their dog well, and if you're feeding them kinetic, you are. It takes the guesswork out of it. They've got some new supplements coming, some new flavors coming. We're going to have some previews for you. Please tune in for that. KineticDogFood.com, 513-615-6904. Check them out. American aluminum products save dogs' lives. All of our officers use their canine inserts. They also make some really nice rad crates and a lot of other things, including training aids. Check them out. American Aluminum Accessories on the socials. You can call them toll free, 800-277-0869, or email them for a quote at quotes@aaa-mail.com. Horizon Structures is a one-stop shop for your dog kennels. If you guys are serious about this and you're getting into it, you need space for dogs, give them a call, 888-447-4337. From mild to wild, let your imagination go. They can make it and drop it off at your door. Horizon Structures. And we would really like it if you guys would follow us on our new YouTube, Working Dog Radio YouTube. You're going to be able to see our pretty faces. You're going to be able to see our ads and our guests. We're going to have some really cool training videos. We're going to release podcasts earlier in that avenue. So please join us on our YouTube. We really appreciate you. Thank you for listening.
All right, everybody, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite from the Hold the Line Canine Conference here in rainy today, Myrtle Beach. It's been real nice. This is the last day. Taught this morning. Our guest next to us, Jerry. We taught at 8 o'clock, so we didn't get to sit in each other's class, but we brought him here to talk about what we're talking about. So with me, as always, is Ted Summers from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ted, what is going on, buddy?
Not a lot. Today's the last day. I'm ready to go home. But when I go home, I'm going to go right back to a 14 dog handler school. So tomorrow morning. So an American Airlines texted me today and told me that my flight's probably going to be delayed because of the rain. I'm like, excellent.
Because of the rain?
They said because of some kind of weather. Look, man.
It's not Atlanta.
They're like, I'm
happy the engine doesn't fall off.
Right, yeah.
It is a Boeing.
There's that. Yeah.
The door's going to fly off, get sucked out. So yeah, with us from Tarheel K9, PSA, National Tactical Police Dog Association, is Jerry Bradshaw. Jerry, how are you?
Doing good. It's good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've been at a conference.
Yeah.
Somebody even said that. They go, I've never seen him teach. I go, he used to all the time. He said, took some time off. And
yeah, COVID kind of soured everything for a little while, and then just stayed home doing more stuff with my own personal dogs after COVID a little bit. And yeah, it was nice to be back on the road and teach big classes and that kind of stuff. So you've been doing a lot of seminars. But
did you win a national?
Yeah, 2019 and 2020. Back to back with Raptor, yeah.
Nice. That's crazy. I don't do PSA. I've never been to one, but I've watched the videos. You get a rabbit hole on some YouTube videos on there. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do any of that. Can't do that. I suck. I can't do that. Can't do that. Yeah, my dog would be licking his balls and that right there. I'm not good at that. But Ted has said oftentimes that if you look at somebody who consistently in that sport, or really any sport, but consistently puts out champions or winners and guys that are getting to the threes over and over and over again, you should pay attention to what that dude says. So we're happy to have you on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's a lot of fun. Like the growth in PSA over the last 5 years has just been fantastic. Sean Siggins and Josh Kirby just went down to Columbia. So we've got like
the country Columbia.
Yeah, we got they did a welcome seminar and decoy certification down there, and yeah, we had like 5 countries in South America that all converged, and they're getting ready to have their first trial, I think, in December, and I'll probably be going down there to judge that trial. So we got a few folks in continental Europe that are looking at trying their hand at it. We got club in Sweden now and UK, and I got some folks in Spain that have reached out. So it's growing pretty good everywhere. We have a trial in Vietnam this month. So Southeast Asia is growing, and it's pretty exciting to see everybody having a lot of fun and doing the sport that we came up with, and a guy's backyard back in 2020 or 2001. So yeah, it's pretty exciting to see how far it's gone and all the people that are involved, and obviously it's so many people are involved on so many levels now, and all volunteer, and it's just going along strong, and people are coming to it, so voting with their feet. So we're pretty excited about it.
I like it. You guys are like the Hells Angels now, like everywhere, like international.
It's interesting to watch it have grown over even the last 10 years. And the thing that I was talking about somebody the other day about the skill level of just the average trainer, and the selection process for the average dog has skyrocketed. And PSA is still really, really, really hard. But the skill level and the dogs that are being produced now, I mean, even like 5 or 6 years ago, like the dogs that are in the ones now are like, you can tell that they have all the potential to be moving into the 3s rather than dogs that were like just barely clearing.
Yeah, it's true. So I always tell people that my first 2 level 3 dogs were like early in 2000s. It's like watching those baseball movies of Babe Ruth, you know what I mean, versus like modern day baseball. You know what I mean? It's like when I go back and watch some of the videos of what PSA looked like back then in the first couple of years. There were some difficulties back then, just in terms of, like in PSA 3, you had to have 80% in all 4 of your scenarios to pass the level 3. And now that's been relaxed a little bit. But on the other side, the technicality of all the obedience and the protection work and stuff has really changed fairly dramatically. So, but it's a testament to the quality of the trainers, and you set the bar high and they respond to it. And I think we're seeing the same thing a little bit in the police dog world. We're starting to set the bar a little bit higher and asking more of the dogs, and people are sort of responding. And it's been nice in the last 5 or 6 years to see a lot of like I was just commenting in my class how many people were in there taking notes and had their laptops and stuff like that, versus like 15 years ago, you'd have a bunch of people sitting there with their hands in their laps staring at you, not writing a word down. You know what I mean? Yeah. And people are taking, I think, the craft a little bit more seriously as handlers, and that's good to see.
They take pictures of your screen.
Yeah.
So, you're here talking about something that has been talked about a lot recently, just this year, towards the last, like around Thanksgiving stuff, I started seeing it get picked up online and stuff, people talking about drive capping. And that's what you're instructing here. And, when people come to PSA, I tell them, I was like, you're constantly dealing with competing problems here. You're dealing with control and precision, but then also power, speed, and everything else. And it's 2 things that are constantly at odds. And drive capping, where I learned to do it, was in PSA and apply it to police dogs. So there's been several discussions about what it is and isn't. So let's just kind of briefly talk about like how, like I sat through your presentation yesterday and took some notes. So let's just kind of start from the top and talk about what drive capping is, where it started, and what we think it is.
Yeah.
Isn't.
I couldn't tell you where it started. I remember like back in the old days in my Schutzen career, guys like, for some reason, Dean Calderon, I remember him doing seminars and talking about drive capping and some articles and stuff. And, some of the old Dog Sport magazine publications, guys like Gene England talking about it. But like, honestly, I was telling my class today, you talk to 5 different trainers, you'll get 5 different definitions of what drive capping is. Some people think it's just merely suppressing the dog into being quiet. Some people think it's about, what kind of slip lead you use to make the dog quiet. And to me, drive capping is a lot about just sort of leveraging rewards. It's a very operant exercise if done well. If done poorly, it becomes a very classically conditioned exercise where you can create lots of problems, you can create lots of avoidance, you can create suppression and things like that. But the idea is to use, fairly well generalized obedience commands to, take a very, expressive dog, which is sort of putting out a lot of kinetic energy, and then to use that obedience to kind of put a lid on all that expression and have the dog internalize the drives that he was expressing minutes before and be able to hold it in as kind of what we call potential energy, right? And then when we release that energy, like into a searching exercise or, something like building search, area search, whatever the case may be, that now that energy is more focused into the behavior. So, for example, you bring kind of an unfocused, uncapped dog into a building and he's, making noise, he's barking, he's pulling, he's lunging, maybe it's some backup guys, right? And so all that energy is expressing and it's kind of unfocused. And when you can cap it, get the dog into a down, prevent the leaking, so he's not creeping and he's not, making a lot of noise, and, do what you need to do. And then you give the dog the search command, you take all that potential energy and it comes out in a much more productive way. So I feel like done well, drive capping really increases clarity and really increases the sense for the dog of purpose in a particular exercise. So he's not coming in all unfocused. So for me, a lot of it is just taking all that energy that sometimes is unfocused and focusing it well. And you have to sort of restrain the drive and contain the drive as potential energy in order to release it in the areas that you want to.
Hey guys, Alicia with Working Dog Radio here again. I wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our newest sponsors, someone that we are super, super happy with and glad to have aboard, somebody that we have known since they literally got into the game. Aiden and Jesse from RexSpecs literally made a product so that they could enjoy life with their dog. Their dog suffered from panis and they wanted to take their dog skiing, and they went out and they made goggles that fit their dog, and now they make products for your dog, my dog, and everybody's dog. And we've watched them grow and we are so proud of them and proud to know them. All their products are American made. They are supporting us who support them. These goggles are UV protectant. They protect your dog's eyes from dust, from particles, from anything that could get in the way if you take your dog to the range. One of the products that Ted and I use most often is their Ear Pro. They have Canine Ear Pro. It pulls over your dog's head and it protects their ears. So if you go to the range, you're doing gunfire acclimation, whatever you're doing, those things work great. They have leashes. They have all kinds of cool stuff. You really need to check them out. And we are very glad to have them aboard and very proud of their products. We do have some. We will give some away. Keep watching for us. If you check them out on the socials, it's at RexSpecs, SPECS, the letter K, the number 9, and also RexSpecs.com. If you use the discount code Working Dog Radio, all one word and all lowercase, you'll get 20% off your first order.
One thing you said in your presentation that kind of stuck out to me is a lot of times I see trainers talk about drive capping only in prey, and there's several other drives that dogs are working in, but they tend to focus on the expression problem of excessive leaking, and they try to stop that only. And just like anything else in the United States, right? Like when we take a ton of pills or whatever else to prevent symptoms, right? And the excess vocalization during like building searches or the whining is the symptom of the uncapped drive coming out. And the one thing that you said that I think a lot of people kind of had an aha moment because I looked around is you said that being quiet is a byproduct. Yeah. And it's not the end goal. And a lot of times, and how many times, if you're listening to this and you probably do this, how many times have you heard handlers yell quiet at their dog?
Yeah, thousands,
like hundreds of thousands of times. And are they ever quiet? No, they're not. And I've heard
we're all yelling. That's what the dog's like. Thank you.
Exactly. I shared that meme. I was like, I taught this dog a really cool trick where he's barking, and I yell, "Shut the fuck up" as loud as I can, and he barks more.
Right.
So, when we start talking about it, because I think a lot of guys, and when I explain it to my handlers, I say we have to like rub the bottle or rub the lamp and let the genie out and then put the genie back in. So the dog has to have the experience of being just absolutely unhinged and allowed to just crush people in the highest expression state of his drive. And then we have to be able to pull him back quickly and clearly and cap him. And that's that portion rather than just trying to make him quiet.
Yeah. I think when you try and do that and you only, kind of like work one side of the dog and say, look, listen, you're not going to be allowed to ever be expressive again. And if that dog is sort of naturally expressive, even if he's, even if he's barking in prey, which is, it doesn't make sense on some level, but for dogs, you have to, I talk in my talk about how you have to realize what's a sort of natural instinctive behavior in the drive model and, sort of what's been taught. A lot of dogs come over here from Europe and they've just, been allowed to be unhinged and loud and bark and prey. You look at like half the KMPV dogs that come over here, you watch them in a KMPV trial and they're barking in heel position, going bananas. And all they have to do is hold heel position until they're sent. They can be loud, they can bark, they can bounce, they can do all that stuff. You take a 2 or 3-year-old dog that's been taught it's okay to do that out of frustration and say, okay, I'm never going to let you be expressive again. You are swimming upstream. You know what I mean? Like that is going to be a hard criteria to hold all the time. So sometimes just allowing that dog to be able to be expressive in certain situations and then capped, so he doesn't think that, it's quiet all the time. Otherwise I think you're just going to be like trying to beat that up and you're not going to succeed. Like eventually that's just going to take over and you're going to lose that battle because the dog will be much more married to giving that response than you are to making sure you suppress it at every opportunity. Like we're just not that good about being that consistent as handlers and trainers. Right. So that's the reality. So I find allowing the dog to be expressive sometimes. And I made the point, I hope I made it in the class that you were sitting in on, but I'm trying to make the point that as patrol handlers, and let's stop trying to make every single dog a fucking SWAT dog, but as patrol handlers, right? Like sometimes you want to change somebody's behavior with your dog and having him stare and drool at your suspect is not as useful as being able to get that dog to be in an expressive state, and let him see a mouthful of teeth. And sometimes that will convince somebody to show some hands or, be more cooperative. But if you can leverage that and I can make my dog be noisy when I want to make him noisy and then quiet when I have to, give commands to the suspect, that's like a superpower, right? And trying to be quiet all the time is just going to be way harder than that.
And, I've said this before too, where, cause I've made that point to handlers and I was like, somebody that you're giving commands to, if your dog is barking at them in prey or barking at them in defense or generalized just barking, they don't know the difference. Like, cause we talk a lot about prey barking and defense barking and what it sounds like. And people have gone on ad nauseum for decades about what the difference is in that. And as trainers, we have to, and handlers need to be able to identify those differences too, but ultimately being able to move back and forth between those, either from some sort of channeling at that point or being able to cap that immediately is the skill that I think a lot of handlers wish that they want, that they all want to have, right? They want that barking, and then quiet, and then immediately the dog shuts up.
I think the funny thing is, I think people are under the impression that if they ever allow their dog to be expressive, it's going to make it more out of control, where I think the opposite is true. If I can allow my dog to sometimes be expressive and get that out of his system and sometimes be quiet, it's a lot easier to achieve that than it is quiet all the time in situations where the dog has been classically conditioned to want to be expressive.
You talked about in the presentation about like some of the requirements to cap. And so I think a lot of times handlers, like I said, they just want to suppress the barking. They just want to stop the symptom. And it's a lot more of a process than just being like teaching them to be quiet. Like, cause it's the same thing when I tell handlers, it's why we don't teach stay commands. Like, how do you reinforce a stay? Like, and how do you correct a stay? Like, it's not a terminal release. It's not a terminal mark. So there's not really anything that you can mark in that behavior like quiet, and then how do you reward it? The dog's already in a heightened state of arousal, he's already in a heightened state of drive, and continuing to mark that behavior and mark all those behaviors tends to exacerbate the problem. So you started out by saying you have to have obedience that's pretty much generalized across multiple contexts and start that way you start with a lower state and start with food, right? So all these dogs, and like Eric says, just because you use food does not mean you like penis. What's the joke, Derek?
Yeah. If you use food with a working dog, doesn't it mean you will suddenly start liking penis?
It's not a
Because
Subaru.
that's a thing.
It's not a Subaru, right?
And it's a dog, not a Subaru Outback. Doesn't change anything, because I still hear it all the time. That's a working dog. You don't use food.
Right.
That's some bullshit. You use a toy. Come on, man.
Yeah. Times have changed a little bit, right? We made this point too in the class, where when you're trying to work on, at the end, I talked a little bit about general neutrality, because that's something else people, struggle with, is, coming out to a call, and it just takes a while to get deployed. And, the dogs get into this sort of like cascade of anticipation of the ultimate, release to do the search and potentially bite. Like being able to reward your dog when you're staging, reward your dog when you're on perimeter, reward your dog when you're being called up. In those moments where you have to stay in place, it's a lot easier to use food to reward, and something you can take on deployments. Like you don't have to be playing with balls around, people who are kitted up and, potentially going to step on it, or, roll an ankle or something like that. Like, a little bit of food on the ground is not going to change anything for anybody. And it's an easy way to reward the dog. And it also will help keep them in a lower arousal state, which is kind of what we're after when we're doing neutrality work. The more people that are out there explaining, that, yeah, it's not a sign of weakness to use food in training. And it's actually a sign of you understand how to keep your dog at a lower arousal state. And it's a smart thing to do. And it's a goal you're trying to achieve. And why not do it?
Yeah. Is there, I don't remember if I was told this or I dreamt it one time, but is there a way to use capping as like a pressure cooker on like a 65-mile-an-hour dog, not a 100-mile-an-hour dog, to build to where he blows over?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of those dogs that are maybe a little unfocused, when they learn to internalize their drive and then release it in a purposeful way, and that comes down to how you're setting up your training, how you're setting up your training scenarios and what you're working on. I really feel like for a lot of those dogs that are, maybe a little impulsive, a little leaky, a little, unfocused, that it really will build power in those dogs to be able to at least take the energy that they do have and focus it in on what we want them to focus it on. So, like obviously quiet is kind of a byproduct, but I think another byproduct of good capping work is also clarity. Like the dog gets a lot more clear on what his job is and what he's doing. I mean, imagine a dog that comes into a building search and he's like snapping at backup people, and he's, that if you see that, the dog's already unfocused. If he's looking at backup guys, then he doesn't understand his job in a building search, right? So, like making sure your dog really understands what he's doing, and then, being able to focus the energy on the forward motion, the hunting, finding the guy in front of us, that can definitely increase the power in the dog. So I definitely use it for that. And so I think some people think it only is on high prey, 100-mile-an-hour dogs. Those are the ones that have to be capped, but you have to also cap other dogs too for different reasons. Sometimes you have to cap dogs in defense, as Ted said, because sometimes those dogs are harder to cap, because they're really experiencing a threat trigger and get a little bit of tunnel vision and, auditory exclusion and stuff like that. So like getting those dogs more clear on when to express like their defensive aggression and when to be able to internalize that can be a little bit more challenging than prey dogs in certain circumstances.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to us for the past 6 years. It would not be possible without our sponsors. And one of our longest time sponsors, in fact, our longest time sponsor, is Tactical Police K9, Aaron and Jason Ferguson. They are amazing. They've been amazing to us, and they are amazing to this industry. They have a new online series that is for law enforcement only. And law enforcement guys, you know how important it is to keep up on your practices and your education. This one is for you. It's a canine criminal interdiction series, and it is literally for you guys to expand your knowledge on canine usage during traffic stops and interdiction work. It's going to cover things like roadside interview techniques, identifying traps and hidden compartments, related case law and record keeping strategies, you name it, it is in this course and you need to have it. If you go to their website, tacticalpolicek9training.com, and you use their discount code NARC, all caps, you will get 20% off any of their online courses. Check them out. Dogtra. We use so many Dogtra products that it's hard to even tell you where we begin. All of our canine get a Dogtra e-collar. We use the 1900 black, and all of our pets get a 200C. All of our canines use bark collars. We have their ball training systems. We've even bought a quail launcher from them. We use bungee collars. You name it. If it goes on your dog's neck, we get it at Dogtra. Dogtra has been great to us through the years. We love their sponsorship. We love their products. I order them every single week. If you go to dogtra.com, you can use the discount code WDR10. You'll get 10% off a single item over $200. You can also check out Dogtra Official for their socials and follow them there and see what other products that they're coming out with, because they innovate every day. Dogtra.com. RexSpecs K9. I'm so excited that these guys came aboard. I stalked them for years. Yes, I did, and unapologetically so. They make amazing products. I love nothing more than seeing a tiny little Chihuahua wearing the googly eye RexSpecs. But they don't just make fun products. They make serious products that actually help dogs. These RexSpec goggles have a UV rating of 400. They keep the UV rays off of your dog's eyes. They also protect your dog from getting debris, dust, dirt, sticks, seeds, rocks, anything in their eyes. And then something that Ted and I use at the kennel every single week without fail is RexSpecs Ear Pro. You slide it over the dog's head. It's easy to use. And most importantly, it actually protects your dog's hearing. You guys can check them out if you have a search and rescue dog, a pet dog, an active dog, a service dog, a hunting dog. Go to RexSpecs.com, check out all their products. RexSpecs K9 on the socials. If you use Working Dog Radio, all lowercase, on their website as a discount code, you will get 20% off. American Aluminum has been in business since 1992. They have been making so many things for law enforcement. It is not even funny. They make great things for the canine industry, such as canine inserts that actually saves dogs' lives in wrecks, and much, much more. I don't know if you guys listened to the episode on Canine Corporal, but please do so. It is an amazing episode that really talks about the value of what their products do. American Aluminum makes things that you might not even know that they make, like inmate transport systems, canine training aids, canine inserts, contraband containment, animal control systems, and the list goes on. American Aluminum makes great products here in America, and it is a fantastic company to get to know. You can call them at 800-277-0869. You can get a quote if you go to quotes at aaa-mail.com and ask them for a quote. They will be glad to oblige. Please tell them that we sent you. Arnaud at ALM K9 Equipment has been one of our longest time friends. 13 years ago, Arnaud made a suit for Ted. We call it his Whoopee, and he still has this suit, and it is still the only suit that he wears. We have had this thing re-sleeved about 6 times. It's ridiculous. It smells like a dead body, and he wears it all the time, much to my chagrin. But it is just a testament to how amazing of a product that Arnaud makes. He comes up with his own color combinations. You can get something custom. He hand sews it. Reach out to him at almk9equipment.com. Check him out on Instagram at almk9equipment. If you guys need a canine containment system, otherwise known as a kennel, if you need one or you need many, you need to reach out to Horizon Structures. Horizon makes anything that you can think of, from mild to wild. You can customize their kennels from the ground up. And the best part is, when they are done, they will drive it to your location. They will set it on your pad, and you plug this thing in, and it is ready to add dogs to immediately. Anything that you can think of in a kennel, Horizon Structures can make it happen. We've seen them. They are beautiful. If you go to Horizon Structures and check them out on the socials, if you can call them 888-447-4337 or check them out online, horizonstructures.com. They always have something cool going on. Thank you guys so much. Stay tuned. We have so many amazing things happening.
So when you were talking about some of the requirements for capping, you're talking about using food at a lower drive state and then moving it into the bite table. And
food ball, on the bite table.
And then you're talking about leveraging rewards. But the one thing that kind of stuck out that is the way that you clearly explained it was you're rewarding both states, the expressive state and the cap state. Yep. And you made a really good point about having very skilled decoys, having good timing and having a plan on marking it. So once you're moving from that into it, you talk about moving you moved the table first, and you made a big point about being out of heel position. Yeah. Because there's all kinds of baggage and emotional trauma and all kinds of other things that come from the heel position. Yeah, yeah. So I see too many dudes that are like, quiet, pop, pop with the leash. And I'm like, yo, like, let's like, so when we start,
when you think about like, if you're like punishing or suppressing like leaking or something like that, and you're in heel position, how many corrections has a police dog gotten, especially if the dog is a little further along on the leaking because he's, maybe 2 or 3 years old, and we're just sort of dealing with it now rather than in the beginning, which is fairly common, like at seminars and stuff. And then, you're putting pressure on that dog in heel position. How does he know what it is that he's doing wrong, right? I see people do this stuff all the time where they're coming up and they bring the dog up in heel position and, and they're like, all right, well, we'll negatively punish him. And so we'll just put him back in the car. It's like, how the fuck does he know why you put him back in the car? Does he know it's because he's leaking, or was he positionally wrong in some sense? Or, are you just going to increase that dog's frustration because we brought him out? He thought he was going to do a building search and now we put him back in the car. So when we bring him out the next time, he's going to be like calmer. He's going to be less leaky. For what reason? He doesn't understand why you put him away. So I think, that's in the case of like negative punishment. In the case of like putting pressure on him when he's, making noise and he's in heel position, the dog has received a lot of, probably leash manipulation and stuff like that in heel position, mostly for positional mistakes. So when you start yanking on the leash or putting pressure on him, how does he know what it is he's doing wrong? Right. So when we take the heel position out of the picture, and then it just allows us to much more clearly focus on the two things that we're trying to focus on, which is down and no noise, and no noise in the down. Right. So once the dog's in the down and we put a little, let's say, forward pressure on the prong collar or a slip collar, and a little bit of low level stim, when he starts making noise and he's in the down, he can clearly understand the only thing going on is the noise. And that's what we're trying to deal with. And then if we pick our moments right and leverage the rewards at the moments that we get some good quiet, right, then the dog can start to understand what it is he's being rewarded for and what it is he's being punished for when we do punish him, or what we're negatively reinforcing, right? And I think that's a lot of what is lacking from what I see in drive capping work is clarity of what the dog is understanding or not understanding as the goal of the exercise. And I think we have to be real clear about that with the dog so that we're not being unfair.
Eric just had a dog in Texas at one of his seminars that he was his last chance, and is a perfect example of what I don't necessarily think it's defensive drive capping, but the Leash Dog. Tell that for a second.
Yeah. So the dog was at an agency in Alabama, the handler whacking him in the face with the leash and then punch him in the face. And then the handler got fired.
In heel position.
Right. Yeah. The handler got fired. But what do you think that created with the leash? Dogs now got an enemy for sure. And he would go, like, you're trying to do detection. You might get 8 feet and then it's on. And not trying to bite the handler, always severing that leash or just fighting that. And so now we have this whole thing going on. And then a leash on the ground. If you saw a leash hanging in the kennel, if it was in a drawer, and if it touched his face, he was snapping it and just trying to run away, like on the side of the highway. Yeah. So they gave the dog back to the vendor. The vendor shouldn't have. I think they extorted him, but the agency made him take the dog back. He had to give him a new dog. I would have ruined that, chief. I'm just telling you that. But he gave him a new dog. So he comes back and he's trying everything. And some of that behavior you can extinguish with a nice little bit of stim, but it made it worse. He did the ball, the testicles, everything they could think of, trying to fix that. 2 e-collars at 100 and everything. And it just made it worse and worse and worse. when I went to the vendor, there was probably 12 leashes without clips on them, but he was severing. So it was, you can't repurpose him because he can't wear a leash. You can't give him away because he can't wear a leash. So it's me or a needle. And it took me a day and a half using tone on the collar as a negative marker to fix it. And they just messaged me the other day. They did like a half-mile track, 5-6 hides, no leash bothering whatsoever. Nice. And if he turns it the leash at all, hit tone, he stops. But he also, all of that stuff started causing issues in the kennel. It's spinning and shitting and losing weight. And it's the dog's living in some sort of
phobia.
Oh yeah. Some weird. And I think the leash became a fight and an enemy, but I think there was a little bit of self-gratification out of that, with the dog. So now he's spun out at that point. But yeah, clarity of task, change that up. Don't bite the leash. It's your fault. Not, and then the trainer stopped talking to the dog and just did that one.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, like, when we're doing this type of exercise, like I see guys go too hard on the dogs with the suppression on the e-collar. They go up too high and stuff like that. And, for low level stim with some duration on it. But the most important thing is the dog's got to know what he's doing wrong. And those are hard things to communicate sometimes. So we have to simplify the picture for the dog in a way where he can understand that. And especially for a dog like that, obviously that's been in fights with the handler over it, taking the emotion out of it, with the tone like you do. That would make a lot of sense, right? It's like, okay, this is emotionless, but it's gratifying to the handler to know I can communicate clearly with this dog about what the problem is, and then he's going to experience some, negative reinforcement, which is you put your mouth on it and it's going to, be a little bit on fire, and then everything goes away when you take your mouth off of it, and then everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then you can start focusing on other things like tasks that you can be rewarded for, and get his mind off that stuff. But yeah, I think a lot of times in the drive capping too, we run into that problem of the dog doesn't understand what we're getting into him for. And that level of confusion in the dog just leads to more frustration, more noise, and it's just a vicious circle.
So if Ted's a handler, he's working a dog, he doesn't really know much about drive capping. He hasn't been trained on his, people don't know, but now we're operational. And so say did a track with a bite, but they want you to find something he threw, or usually it's the cruiser keys of the guy that lost his magazine, fell out of his gun. What does that capping look like for that guy to be able to go from what he just did, because the dog's still trying to kill everybody, to having to use his nose?
Yeah. Well, like some of that really, that skills transition stuff, which, a lot of us do in like our handler courses and stuff, right? For us, a lot of it is cueing it properly. So the dog understands, hey, you can go from, a high expression exercise, like a track to a bite, come off that bite and be able to, go to a vehicle or a evidence search like you're talking about, or, clearing the vehicle of contraband or something like that. A lot of that starts with just proper, equipment cues, proper cueing the dog in terms of rituals and things like that. But that stuff should start early. A lot of that depends on how quickly the dog will recover from that high expression activity. So sometimes it's more neutrality than capping that we use in those situations where, putting the dog in a bit of a long down, letting him, calm down a little bit, or putting him in the car for a few minutes, bringing him back out. If the car is a trigger, then that's not going to work, but putting him on a long down or something like that, healing with some rewards, ball rewards and stuff like that, to get him in the right state of mind for the next activity. But a lot of times I find the bigger problem with skill transitions is the dog is, he's thinking about what he just did and he's not cueing into the other behavior properly. And that comes from training too, right? Like for us, at least, training in certain orders where, you got to be able to do some, let's say we go out in the morning and, sometimes we track and then we do detection and we do bite work. Sometimes you got to go out, do bite work, right? Then go someplace else, track, and go someplace else, do some more bite work, then do some detection. So the dog is experiencing high value rewards in particular behaviors. Then he goes in the car again, and then we drive to another location, then we come out, and then we cue the lower drive task, right? So some of that comes down to cueing. and just neutrality and being able to do that stuff quicker and quicker and quicker. That's part of the neutrality training that we talked about kind of at the end of the talk.
That's really cool. I'll tell you a real quick story. When I was a handler, we had a retired cop that got murdered. His neighbor's kid broke into his house, or walked into his house, stabbed him 14 times, shot him like 17 times. Dude got shot 9 times on the street and survived. One incident, 9 rounds, survived. He gets killed as an old man. So they have me, I'm in the gang task force at the time with a dog, and they have me and a sergeant go, they catch the guy. He says, I gave the gun to this dude. So we're going to go look for that dude. Well, the sergeant goes down the street. I'm coming around through the back of the house, butts up against a church or school. So I'm coming through the parking lot. Sure enough, the guy's in the front. He's running. As he's running towards this tree line, he throws something and he keeps running. I pop the door, bite. And one of my things with the bites are what I used to do is I would, especially if I was by myself and I thought maybe this guy's supposed to have a gun, I would just start screaming and yelling and make total chaos so that the guy could not ever, it's chaos enough with the dog, but just make him so that he would just couldn't even focus. So I get my dog off the bite when the guys get there. They want me to look for whatever he threw in the thing. Dude, we had never worked that. He was not doing it. And then I got him into the wood line and he found a basketball. Of course. Dude, it was the worst day ever.
Of course.
And we ended up calling another dog in who was on another call, brought him over. He found it was the gun, it was the murder weapon. That would have been cool to do that. But I had no idea how to and if I would have just laid him down, waited. There's no hurry at this point, right? But we get into our head a lot.
A rush. Yeah. That's like kind of, we've got nowadays, when we're doing, got good perimeters up and stuff like that. And you got to go do a track. And the handlers rush into the track. The dog's been maybe cooped up in the car. It's his first time out that night. He's got to do this track, and the dog is like losing his marbles going to the call. And I was, telling them like, those are perfect moments to, hey, you got a perimeter up. The guy's probably gone to ground. You got time. Put your dog in it down. Like, let him self-regulate. Let him learn to regulate his emotions. Right. They, a couple of guys came up to me and they're like, man, like if I run my dog until he's about to drop, then he tracks with a better frame of mind. I'm like, but you can't do that. Like, he has to learn to regulate himself, right? You can't go tiring him out before you run tracks, right? So, that kind of stuff, I think, is things that we can actually help these guys do when they've got that time and not rush into those things with a dog that's in the wrong state of mind, because then you're swimming upstream again. Like you're butting up against what the dog is naturally trying to do. In those situations, you're going to be unsuccessful. It's going to take you way more time than if you just give the dog a little time to self-regulate, get him in the right frame of mind, so he understands. Okay, I have to get into my track sort of at a speed which is right for that dog, and not go into it with all the marbles rolling around and nothing in the holes.
I know, Ted, you do a lot of drive capping. Do you find that bring it down to its basics on the go, on the move, just if they don't do anything else, a down stay just seems to fix a lot of what you do.
Yeah, I tell people, well, again, when we have had Todd on, when we talk about like after a building search and the dog goes into the room, he bites the decoy, and then we out the dog manually or verbally or however we're going to do it, down him, and then we stay in the room and the decoy leaves. Yeah. Right. And we have a hallway where we train, and we have multiple sections. Right. So, and then like you said, I don't know if you said it or Todd said it, where you're like, once the dog decides that he's going to roll onto his hip and go into a relaxed state, then we're like, all right, we can start making announcements again, ask him to do something. But it's like what we said at the beginning of this recording, you have a generalized obedience behavior. And if, like when Jerry says that, if you're doing it correctly, the dog will start anticipating. So they'll out in the box, down quickly, and they're quiet. And then your decoy records, or it rewards to that state at that point in time. And so they learn to do it quickly. So I can do multiple long line building searches with the same decoy. I can do 4 finds in like 5 or 10 minutes or something, like quickly. And so we just go from room to room to room to room and bounce along. Right. And, everybody that's listened to this has heard me say it all the time, like shitheads commit crimes together. And I've had several of my guys have had more than one bite on one call where they're tracking, and being able to track, bite, out, get him back under control and recast him again.
Willie would not have done that. He would have, I guess, if I knew how to do it.
That's a skill. And I have buddies that are in the battalion that are handlers in Trent. I mean, we've had him on before, and he said some of the hardest work that he ever did as a handler in the battalion was biting some Haji's outing and then having a time limiting on running a detection run. Like they had him sweep for explosives.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
dude, you've got like 3 minutes. You got to get this
We
dog
gotta
under
go.
control.
Yeah.
And, Leica was a murder pony, and so was Benno. And Trent was like, this is impossible. Like, he was like, and I see Chris, I mean, they're still doing it. Like, if you follow him on social media, you can see like they ask the dogs to do detection work around suited decoys.
Yeah.
So
when you talk about the dog's behavior, what I call it, when I explain it to guys, I call it the power of twos. With the dog, when we're teaching out, where we reward them for outing, and they hover, or they take a little cheap shot, or they just kind of hang there, I do a down. So correct number 1, pay number 2, and then the more the dog goes down, they start being quiet, and because the out just becomes a means to get to the down, to get to the reward,
Right.
and so when I'm trying to break it down to those guys, but then I explained to them, listen, you can fuck up and pay the second thing, and now your dog is breaking every single time you walk and turn around and come back to him. We're going to wrap it up. I got a PSA question for you.
Sure.
So I'm always fascinated by this gamesmanship. So you're going to go judge down in South America. How much are those guys watching and learning how you like to set up things? Are you habitual? Do you know that guys are trying to figure you out and how that works?
Sure. Yeah. So I think at least in the level 2 stuff, like level 1, we're just picking a number for a surprise scenario. Right.
Yeah.
So, but there are places where you can, make little adjustments in like the obedience and like the level 2s, or, you might have judges sometimes have certain exercises that are a recurrent theme, right? And there are 3 scenarios and stuff like that. So I think the good competitors are always like watching what the judges are doing lately, right? So I used to do it when I was getting ready to show at nationals. Once I knew who the judge was, I would just start studying some YouTube videos of some of the latest trials that they judge to see kind of what's on their mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like maybe the stuff from the last few trials is kind of in their heads, and they're going to do some variation on a theme. So those are things I would look at and practice. Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. People definitely, now it's a lot easier with, all the trials are videoed, and you can usually find them online. So it makes it a lot easier to check that stuff and see what they're doing.
Humans are habitual, man. They some of them don't even realize that they're doing it, you know, and they have to be pretty, we love do a little bit of study.
We love patterns, right? So it's like trying to get your, when I'm trying to get like handlers, I say like, lay your articles at like on a track at like a 15-foot average. And then you walk out there and it's like, everyone is like at 15 feet.
Yeah.
It's like, that is technically correct, but not what I meant. Right?
Yeah.
I said average for a reason.
So Ted, do you hang up the PSA decoy? Are you getting too old for it?
No, I decoyed at a trial last year. Like I went out to California and decoyed out there at the Fault Line trial, and we had 3 threes in there, and there were some nice dogs there. Like Chris Althair was there, Fred Hansen, and I
think I know Fred.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, Abby. That dog belongs in a police car.
Yeah. That dog. Trains Ricky.
Yeah, that dog belongs in a police car. It's a super nice dog. And I was there the year before with Ricky when he got his 2. And there's a picture of him walking around doing the transport. It looks like I'm burnt. So, like Weekend at Bernie's, he's got to hold the back of my fucking bite suit. The dog, the icon's like right here looking at me. And so, yeah, that dog that Ivy has that dog belongs in a police car. He's a nice dog. Super nice dog. He's a good trainer too. And of course, Jonathan Katz was the judge, and there was some crazy shit. And of course, in the 3s, it's interesting to watch the handlers meeting, because as the decoys, like, we know what's going on, but then as they're explaining, the judges are explaining, we're like, I'm watching the competitors, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do. Because, there was there was a portion where the dog had to be left, and then the handler had to be seated away with his back towards the dog. But there wasn't clear instructions on where to set. And Jonathan was like, well, it's not on accident. And he told me it wasn't on accident, but it's always interesting to watch, like when they talk about gaming and hearing the questions that people ask. I've been in a trial with Richie Daryl Ritchie, where a competitor asked something like, "Oh, is this a hard start?" He's like, "It is now." And I'm like, "Fuck, way to go, dude!" And every rest of the competitors are like, "Thanks, asshole."
Yeah,
and it's like the one kid in question, like, "We get homework." And
So, Jerry, you want to plug podcasts and everything else?
Sure.
Patreon,
Yeah.
all that stuff?
So I've got the Controlled Aggression podcast, which is available in all podcast platforms for the most part. My patreon.com/controlled aggression. And we've got a website where I've got all my police dog seminars and upcoming things there called streetreadyk9.com. So that's up there too. And of course, our Tarheel K9 website, tarheelk9.com. Those are the main ways which you can reach us, or through our Instagram at TarheelK9.
The Controlled Aggression book is still solid reading.
Still out there. We got a.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go to the Street Ready or Tarheel K9 and go to that. And also got an audiobook version of that too. Got some webinars and things like that on Street Ready K9 that you can download.
Awesome.
On protection theory, obedience theory, stuff like that, detection.
Yeah, that's one of those books that just is lasted.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Any re-edits? I need to do a little bit of an update to it. It's just trying to get the time to do all that stuff. I always seem like I'm running around like crazy. Yeah.
Lots of plans on doing more writing, but less time than I would want to have. So
yeah,
hopefully soon I can get into some of that stuff.
Just go on and do a chapter just entitled "Stop Being a TikTok Asshole."
Exactly.
We have to deal with that.
I know.
We have to deal with.
There
was no TikTok when you wrote that book, so now we got to stop this shit.
Every time I see you, you're still on that.
Oh
so
yeah, fuck your pup cup.
It's definitely a thing.
Can't stand it, dude. That's why I'm going to Congress, guys. You got to get rid of this shit. We got to get rid of these cops on TikTok and these firemen. They're worse. They got their shirts off. It's crazy. Ted, where you at?
Cats and dogs lying down together.
Torchlight K9, HRD Blues K9, obviously Working Dog Radio, and Oil Capital K9 Fund. All social medias and the Instagrams and the interwebs. So
yep, get on workingdogradio.com. With our t-shirts, and then we got some really cool designs. I still think the Make America Bite Again is one of the best shirts we ever came up with.
Regardless of the political climate, I still think it's great that shirt is relevant again.
Yes, it worked out. Keep running, dude. We keep selling. We have a Malinois with a big weird hairdo on it. It's great. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it was good to see you guys.
Yep. Well, take care. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You got your reasons, I got my wants. Still got that feeling, but I'm too old to die young now.
Working Dog Radio was graciously granted permission to use this music by Brother Deeg. Be sure to check him out at brotherdeeg.blogspot.com. That's spelled brotherdege.blogspot.com. Be sure to buy him a beer at Amazon, iTunes, or CD Baby, or anywhere you stream your music. Working Dog Radio was edited and co-produced by Alicia Brandt.